Welcome, everybody, to Explicit Materia, the podcast where a new drummer talks to all of his friends, new and old. I don't even, I don't even know why I have a podcast. That intro was completely wrong, and stuttering and saying the wrong words. This is the intro. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Explicit Materia, the podcast where a nerdy drummer talks to his friends, old and new. That's the intro. And moving on. Today, I have with me Kara Comparetto, which I've been saying Comparetto because that I'm terrible with last names. Kara, if no one knows, has become pretty well known in the retro gaming space as this beautiful renditionist of these piano renditions of all of our favorite video game tunes that we grew up playing. And so I'm so happy to have her with us. With her, what's the dog's name? That is the cutest dog ever.
This is Little Rue. She's only
Little
4.
Roo. Oh my God, it's adorable. What kind of dog is what kind of dog?
She's a toy poodle.
Toy poodle. Oh,
Tiny
cool.
toy poodle is what they're called. She's very little.
I have a similar dog. His name is Pig. He's a miniature dachshund.
Oh, so you love little dogs.
When we got Pig, I wanted a big dog before we got him. I wanted, because we just bought a house and we're like, we have a yard. So I was like, let's get a big dog. Let's get like a lab or something like that I can run around with and play fetch with. And yeah. And we have a friend who, she doesn't breed them, but she just lets them do their thing. And so she just gives out the family to her friends and her family. And so there's this giant dachshund family within friends and family, and they have like little weenie races every year. And it's like there's like 40 miniature dachshunds just running around causing a ruckus. It is adorable.
Dachshunds are the best. They are amazing dogs.
And because I was resisting it up until the point I met him, and I went over to their house, and I'm like, we're gonna see this dog. I mean, I want a lab. And he sat on my lap, and I was like,
It was over.
and he just fell asleep. He just was like fell asleep and was just cuddling, and I was like, all right, well, I'm taking this dog home. So, and you can't change my mind. But anyway,
The rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. Absolutely. So anyway, Kira, so you're obviously inspired by video games and older video games, the same video games that I grew up playing. And I've used this podcast sort of like to connect with people who had a similar background as me, and like just being inspired and playing and learning all of these soundtracks to all these video games. So I'm kind of curious, like what has been your video game journey in relation to your musical journey, because you're a fantastic pianist.
Thank you.
I mean, absolutely fantastic. Actually, can I just say something real quick? I'm sorry. I'll let you speak here in a moment.
Go for it.
I just want to say, the most impressive thing that you do is that you can sight read.
Mhm.
That's my ADD rattled brain. I tried to sight read, trying to learn music and whatnot. I cannot do it. So it's incredibly impressive that you can just play, sight read, play, sight read. Like, playing is one thing, but to read before you play, that's another level of musicianship of which I don't have. Anyway,
Well, it's like reading a book. You learn to read in a different language, and then when you sit down and you read a book, you're reading the book. It's very, very similar to that. So, and one of the ways in which I got so good at that, of course, is classical training, which is how I grew up. I grew up playing classical music all the way, and I still do. And my video game journey with music didn't really start until my late 20s, which is funny because I grew up playing all of these games. My brother is 2 years older than me. And we used to play games together all the time. We would go to the, movie store and rent games for weeks and try to beat them together. We would play 2-player games. I was really into Nintendo games, especially. He had a PlayStation, but I was more into like SNES, Nintendo 64. Those were my games. Kirby, Donkey Kong, Mario, platformers were some of my favorites. And I loved the music. I really loved the music growing up, but I never thought of it as like you would take, you'd download those tracks and play to them. I, on the other hand, probably just thought of them as just part of music, part of my life. And just, I wasn't really thinking of them as a special thing necessarily until I started posting things on YouTube and other social media platforms. And then I started to realize how much people loved this music. I didn't know that there was a community of people who loved video game music.
Yeah, same here. Like I started doing it in like 2016. Actually, no, scratch that. I started actually posting, small covers here and there, like in the beginnings of YouTube. Because I was inspired by Travis Barker's rendition of that Soulja Boy song. Like he just played rock drums over that hip hop tune, and like it really hadn't. If it had been done before, like Travis Barker made it popular, and so I saw Travis Barker do that, and I was like, someone should do this to video game music, and so I started doing that. Horrible quality, literally just like a computer camera right here, no mics, and just me playing over loud, just all treble, no bass. It's awful. But I started doing that, and I always told myself there's got to be people like me who love this music that want to listen to this music just as they would listen to like pop music or whatever. There's got to be, and I have been searching for forever to find that. And just recently, I finally found that community, and that's how I found you. And people like you, like Geo the Virtue or CR Guitar, like all these different musicians that found, that found a space for these tracks and an audience for these tracks, and people want to listen to them and certain renditions of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I found that being able to do video game music was a great niche for me in general because I was a classical pianist. I mean, I've always played classical music, but the problem with classical music is the space for classical music is so massive. There's so many people doing it, and you have to be the best. Like if you're not the best, you're really going to get nowhere in the classical world. And of course, I still love classical music. That's my favorite kind of music, if you asked me. But to be able to be something in the video game world, be that pianist that makes renditions of these songs, because people weren't. And especially at the time when I started, I felt like I was one of the only ones really.
When did you start?
Covers.
When did you start making covers?
So let's see. I just turned 36, so I think I started.
Oh, by the way,
when
happy birthday! You just had a recent
thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, it was yesterday or 2 days ago now. Oh, time flies. But let's see. I think I was 28, and the reason I started posting, I might have been 27, somewhere around there, is because my brother encouraged me to enter a competition. It was for the Final Fantasy 14 music competition. And basically the competition was for people to write an arrangement of a piece from the game. And my brother's like, oh, you should do it. You need to do it. And I was like, and finally I said, okay, I don't really like to write music that much. I prefer to read it, like you said. But I wrote my own arrangement and I won. And the composer of the game, of the music from the game, sent me this plaque signed by him and told me that he cried listening to my arrangement, and it was all this incredible thing for me.
And
Soken?
Was
yes.
it Soken? That's amazing. Yeah. That's incredible.
Thank you. Yes. Well, he sent that to me, and I think the first day he must have announced it at a convention in Japan. I think that's when they announced the winner of the competition. And I got 8 new subscribers that day on YouTube. And I just flipped out. Like, what is going on here? People want to see me play.
Those days.
Right. I know. So that's when it started. And then I just decided I'm going to keep posting video game music, and I hit it off.
That's so great. That's such a heartwarming thing. Like, yeah, and to be recognized like that, like, hey, you made something. To be recognized by like the creator of Final Fantasy soundtrack. That's absolutely amazing. You should be proud of yourself.
Well, the funny thing is too, I wasn't really I played Final Fantasy 14, but I didn't really play the Final Fantasies before that. I don't know if you're a big Final Fantasy fan.
Oh yeah.
Okay. See, PlayStation wasn't my thing. I didn't know about the early Final Fantasy games. I think the first one my brother started playing was 7. And I might have tried Final Fantasy 1, but I didn't care for the RPG scene. I was more into platformers.
Hmm.
So I didn't get into Final Fantasy until the music when I was 28 years old and I started posting it. And then I realized this is incredible stuff.
Well,
And
I
then I
imagine.
learned about Uematsu and
Ye-
who is this guy? This is amazing.
Yeah, I imagine as a person that grew up playing and listening to classical music and then coming on to and then just learning about Nobuo in your 20s, I imagine that was like, oh wow, this is actually really brilliant music
Hmm.
that now I can like appreciate because I'm older now. I've got a few experience in there. I've learned classical music, which Nobuo is no stranger to.
Right.
And yeah, I think that that was probably a pretty cool experience because we all, you know, 'cause people like me, like I grew up listening to it. So now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, Nobuo Uematsu, he's like top 100 composers ever. Um, but and interestingly enough, I did see, speaking of this particular topic of experiencing Final Fantasy later on in life, you just recently played Final Fantasy VII for the first time
For the first
recently.
time.
Did you ever
Yes,
beat it? I don't know if you ever, did you ever
I
beat it?
did beat it.
Okay.
That was amazing. I had so much fun.
Yeah, well, so what are your thoughts? I mean, because you grew up playing platformers, like so our platformers are your main genre. Like, what are your thoughts about like old school turn-based role-playing games?
Well, I grew up with Chrono Trigger, so that was
Oh.
really my big. And I don't know if you know that I did the whole soundtrack I recorded for three instruments. If you don't know about this, Shane, you got to look it up on YouTube.
Okay, I will look it up.
I recorded the whole thing. I arranged it for three instruments, and it is beautiful. Like even I have to say, I did a really good job. It's a really amazing rendition of the whole soundtrack. But I loved Chrono Trigger growing up. That game to me was one of my favorites. But I feel like I have always kind of had a hard time with Final Fantasy. I just feel like I never really connected with the stories. So now that I've been streaming them a little bit more and playing them with people online, they're able to kind of get enthused
They
with
can like
me
fill in the
and
gaps
help me.
too.
Yes, tell me what's the backstory is and like what's
Right.
going on in this scenario and all that stuff. Where if I was to play it by myself, I'd be like, I have no idea what's going on.
I mean, yeah, as a Final Fantasy fan myself, like, you know, I think I think, you know, 6 was a pretty easy to catch on story, but like from 7 onward, that's when the stories got really started to get a little convoluted and all this unknown lore that you had to really dive deep into and like and stuff like that. But you know, Final Fantasy storylines, if I were to explain to someone who hasn't experienced Final Fantasy, is like you're gonna have some suspension of disbelief in order to
Hmm.
really appreciate these kinds of and this particular series of games.
Absolutely. I recently played Final Fantasy 1 for the first time.
Oh
I played
wow.
the Pixel remaster because somebody sent it to me as a gift and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll try this out." I adored the game, adored the music, and I ended up recording the whole soundtrack, which is going to be released probably next month
See,
with on the piano.
you're better than me because like I can't like I got ruined because I think I started playing Final Fantasy 7 first. It was either 6 or 7. I can't remember which one it was in like the timeline of my life, but I couldn't go back after 6 and 7 because they made such substantial improvements some to the other
Mhm.
titles, so I couldn't go back and really finish it and really appreciate it.
Yep.
I was ruined. I just couldn't do it anymore.
See,
Uh,
to me, it's all that's what I like about it. I like to go back and be like, I see what got better, or I see, you know, what their concept was and why it was able to keep going. And I just love that retro game. Personally, I want to play retro games. If I'm gonna go play a game, it has to be old.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy to me. I've talked about this with friends before. It's just like it's kind of insane how the retro game like has become a genre, you know, that people prefer to play. Um, where it's not like it's not like a whole lot of other things. Like when someone says they want to watch a movie, they don't pull out the VHS. You know, they don't
Right.
pull out and they go like, "Gotta watch this on a box TV, man. It's the best way to watch it." Now, I'm sure there are people like that, but for the most part, you know, people usually just, you know, watch it on Netflix or at worst get the DVD out
Hmm.
and watch it that way. So,
Recently, I watched a cartoon that they had put in like AI HD format, like an old cartoon. And I couldn't even enjoy it. Like I was like, I want it to be pixelated. Like I want it to look old like it did when I was a kid. You know, there's a nostalgia factor there, I think, that goes
Yeah,
along with it.
I really do whenever have, if I ever have like just an excess amount of money, is number one, get more tattoos, and number two, just like really invest in like get an old box TV, that old CR TV that, you can just hook up a Super Nintendo because there is something to that, an old Super Nintendo was made for a CR TV. I mean, you can make adapters for it and everything like that, but it still doesn't have that look, that feel, that sound when you hear a
Mm.
CRTV go off. It's like you can hear the static from the screen. It's just there's something about it. It's that
Well, and that's what people say about the music. They hear certain patterns or, certain themes that bring them back to like a time that they had as a child experiencing that particular scene for the first time. It's
yeah.
really amazing.
Yeah, and they'll hear like remixes or different renditions of it, and a lot of them just want to hear the actual real old school track because the timbre, the 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 scarceness of
Mhm.
all of the tracks. Like they only had what, 8 tracks, 16 tracks to deal with,
Mhm.
and it has its own identity that way.
Right. That's why you need to go listen to my Chrono Trigger renditions because I did them to sound like the original. So basically, it's all on acoustic instruments, but I used a pipe organ, and you will be amazed at how the pipe organ is able to sound like some of these old tracks because it's able to imitate so many different sounds. And so many people have said, this sounds just like the original. I even had a guy download because I have a modded version of the game that was made for it. And
Yeah.
he thought he had downloaded the original game at first. He's like, I think I downloaded the wrong thing.
Like, no, that's real. That's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's that's so awesome. So, you said you grew up playing classical music. When did you start playing?
So I was 7 years old, and my family is very musical. Neither of my parents play, but my dad is a piano tuner and technician, hence
Interesting.
the beautiful instrument behind me.
Yeah.
He rebuilt the whole thing. This is a 1926, I think, Steinert Grand, and he restored the whole thing. But he and his mother played piano and organ. He quit when he was a child, so he doesn't play, but he just tunes pianos.
Yeah.
And he just had in our just growing up living, we just had music on all the time, classical music. We were all in piano lessons. My brother and sister play as well, and we would go to concerts. We'd listen to music all the time. And it was sort of just like this environment of cultivating appreciation for music. And so I took lessons all the way through till I was 22 years old, took some from some great teachers, and then just kind of started self-educating myself. Like I took organ lessons, I went and I was part of a chorus for several years. Right now I'm actually starting to take voice lessons. So just kind of like getting self-education for myself to continue to learn is what keeps me on top of my game in what you see in my
Yeah, that's
posts.
awesome. And you got a beautiful singing voice, by the way.
I'm
For just
trying.
starting out. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
mean, you got all the right stuff there.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just saw what was one that you were singing? The Castlevania
Oh
opening
yeah,
or the
prayer.
save screen. Yeah, prayer or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. It was good. I was like,
My
oh, I know
when
this
I
screen.
Yep, well when I stream, people want me to sing. So it's not I don't feel comfortable doing it because I'm
Same.
just not. What's that?
Same. People want me to
Oh
sing
yeah.
on
Well,
on
you
on my I'm
should.
playing drums. I'm like, no, I don't want
You
to sing. Why don't I want to
you
sing?
will be surprised. People don't care if it's perfect. Like they just want to hear your voice. I notice it when I watch other streamers or when I watch other people posting things. I'm like, man, it's just so nice to hear their voice while they're playing their instrument. So I say do it.
I try. I don't know. I'm shy. Like I'm
So am
like
I.
yeah, I'm just like I'm like that intro extrovert. There's a middle right there. It's like, because I am a performer and I love to perform and I want to perform to everybody and I want everyone to, have that attention for that moment. But then after that, I just kind of want to go in my little area here. Like, okay,
I'm the
okay, I'm
same.
over here. I'm over here
Yep.
now. I'll,
Well,
I'll talk to you
you
guys
have
tomorrow.
yeah,
My energy is spent up. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Nope, nope. I'm done. I'm done for the day.
you have a nice speaking voice. So I
Well,
can
thank
tell
you.
that you would have a nice singing voice.
Well,
So I say do it.
my mother did say that I do have a lovely singing voice, and I
Mm.
have done backup vocals for bands here and there.
Hmm.
And I've done a few like vocal fun things for my producer friends and whatnot. But I don't know. I don't have that. To be a singer, you have to be a singer. I feel like you need a certain level of confidence that I just don't have, and I don't
I
feel would
I disagree with
be
you.
portrayed.
You can't say that because I felt the same way. I feel it every time I sit at my piano and people tell me to sing. I feel it every time. That's why I'm taking voice lessons because I want to get better and feel comfortable doing it because I don't feel comfortable doing it. So
I mean,
I
I'll do
disagree
it
with
for
you.
fun. I'll do
Yeah.
it for fun here and there if I'm feeling if I'm feeling cheeky. If I'm feeling
Hmm.
cheeky, I'll throw in a few vocal tracks like like last stream, like Battletoads was on and I was singing random lyrics like Battletoads, this is in no way a money grab to try and grab go after the Ninja Turtles craze, just kind of random.
Love it.
They're not turtles, they're frogs. Go watch the Discovery Channel to know the difference between the two. They're kind of the same species, but not really. That
People
kind of
want you
stuff.
to be lighthearted about it. They love that.
Yeah, I'm starting to become a little bit more. I'm trying to take it a little bit less seriously, which I started to. Like when I first started doing this, I took it like zero seriousness, like done. I was like, this is just for fun, whatever. And then I started to get a little more attention, and
Mhm.
then I started having this crazy idea of like, oh, maybe this could be something. I don't know. Like I don't, now and then I started to have that mindset of like having goals for it. And I think that's what like gets me into traps. The having goals like, oh, I need to hit this goal. I need to do this and I need to do that. When I'm just like, I don't need to. So I've just recently started to pull back from that mindset. And I think it's just because like I've been in bands and the goal is to get better and more attention and like that's all I've known with music. And so when it's sort of to be goal oriented pushes you to that end goal. And even if you don't reach the goal, you are better because of it.
Mhm.
But that was before the advent of social media or where it is now anyway. Now social media has now turned it into a more of like a mental dance, especially when you do it by yourself. If you have band members, you're just like you get to experience misery together and you have you have like that sort of like damn it, why did we suck so bad today? That it's like, yeah, I don't know, we need to do better. And you guys, you could bounce ideas off each other and be there for each other. But now I'm doing this all on my own and I'm starting to see the fallbacks of doing everything by yourself, mentally speaking, anyway.
Mhm.
And so I like this podcast too, because I get to talk to, other fellow musicians and how they tick and how their success has affected them, and so how that's a good question. Like, has this sort of like attention affected you, like more positively? Like, are like, wow, this is so cool. And, or have you felt any sort of like negative side effects as well?
I think when I first started, I don't think I monetized my channel on YouTube for like 3 years. Like I didn't even know you could make money on YouTube. I was just posting stuff and I just kind of posted it whenever I felt like it. And at the time I was teaching a lot. So I had probably close to 40 students at the time. And that's what I did basically full time was teach music. But after I started monetizing my channel, and then I think I did a stream like on YouTube, terrible quality, audio and video. I think it's still on there. It's so bad. Um, I realized that I could start making money doing this. And I think once you start making money and trying to make money to do it, then you start to feel more pressure because now it's your job. And if you don't come up with a new idea, or if you fail at something, or if your video doesn't get enough views, or whatever that might be, then you start to feel like, can I continue doing this? Should I continue doing this? Do I have, but right now, I feel like I'm in such a great place because I have so much content to release right now. And I've got a guy who's actually doing all my video editing right now.
Oh, that's
And
great.
so basically I just record, and yeah, before that I had to do it all myself, had to do everything myself, and it just made it so much more work. Now this
Yeah.
guy does everything for me. He's been an incredible friend and helper, and
That cannot be understated. Like the having to, and I saw someone say this on TikTok where being a content creator in today's world is so much more, has so much more pressure on the artist and so much more work the artist has to do themselves. Because in the back in the day, you know, you had a little bit of talent, a manager saw you, an agent saw you, and they're like, hey, let's do something. And then you have a team behind you. Now, and then the label's behind you. And then now you have a distributor. And now you have like all these other factors. And all you have to do is just make music. That's all you do. You went into the studio and you just played your songs and then you walked out. That's it. But now, in order to get some semblance of anything, you have to post every day. You have to make it interesting, and you have to hit all these factors, and you got to post at this certain time, and you got to, you know, and then
and still get unlucky.
And then still get unlucky,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
like the mental gymnastics that you have to go through in order to be a content creator today, you just can't be, because now I've lived in both worlds. I've lived in the world before social media, and now I'm living in the world with social media. I much would rather have the earlier world where I had someone that dealt with all the marketing, because that's what you're doing. That's what you did before you have a friend help you with these videos, because editing a video is marketing yourself. And I've learned that I'm a terrible marketer of myself. I'm awful at it. Like I don't know what you know, and you have all these tips and tricks and everything like that. And you know, you seem to, you seem to have it set. Like you seem to have, you know, people just want to see you perform. And so all the hard work, you just do it automatically. So that's incredible.
Well, I think one of the biggest things that has basically been a game changer for me has been the streams on Twitch, which is where I mainly stream, where I can just be at my own instrument in my own house with my own microphones in my own setup, all by myself, and play for an audience and just be myself.
Yeah.
And be it in real time, which of course people love. You know, they want to see you in real time. They want to see what you do when you make mistakes, when you're trying to read music, or when your voice cracks when you're trying to sing. Like that makes you more of a real person to them.
Yeah.
Than always just posting, you know, professional content that's perfection every time.
Yeah. You know, that's one of the good things that has come up in this new age of marketing yourself, is that people want to see real. You know, they don't want to, you know, they don't want I mean, they do obviously, because those things are super popular and they get millions of views still, but you know, there is an avenue for people just being themselves and just having fun and having a good time. And that, you know, but you know, honestly, to be completely honest, I've been told that my entire life with sports, music, anything is like, have fun, because people see you have fun. And that comes across more than, you know, your musical skill. I mean, have some skill. You can't just be banging away. And but honestly, you know, Lars Ulrich from Metallica, he is an awful drummer, technically speaking, but god damn it, like he's just so fun to watch. He's just having the grandest time. And I'm like, good for you. Good for you. So, you know, there's definitely something to that.
I tend to separate it a little bit, like on my main. I have an alternate YouTube channel now, and I have a main YouTube channel. So whenever I post on my main YouTube channel, it's always professional quality. I'd want to make sure that I have that avenue of it just being really, really good. Because like you said, you can't just have fun but not have any skill. Like people want to see that you have skill. You got to work on that and show them that you have skill. But
Yeah.
then to have that other side of you that people can also see is just kind of a normal, oh, I make mistakes while I play. I don't just cut them out. I don't splice them out kind of thing. So it's fun to
Yeah.
have both.
Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of miss having being able to see. I'm unable to kind of pick a project and focus on it. Just the way my life is like. So the live stream has actually been really beneficial to me in terms of getting any sort of content out because really that's all the time I have to do. And now that I'm like just, making editing videos every single day and posting them on every single, social media outlets, uh, there's really no other time for a creative uh venture other than the live stream and marketing that. Which is fine because it's great. It's incredibly fun, and I'm incredibly blessed by it's just so like how grateful are you that you just have people that come see you every time that you stream. Like I just think that's so freaking cool that people are just they just show up and they say, hey, good, go. Like you have the support system behind you.
Oh yeah, for sure. I sometimes sort of joke with my followers that if I stream too much, I'm gonna make my, loyal followers feel obligated to come to all my streams because you know that they want to, but what if you stream every day? Are they gonna be able to come? And you don't want to make them feel like they can't get anything else done but come to your streams.
um so okay, so you grew up playing like platformers. What was there a moment? Was there like a video game moment that you can remember that you're like, okay, that I really do enjoy video games. Like this is kind of my thing.
Oh goodness.
Or
I
was it
think
pretty
I've
much immediate?
No, I think I've always loved them. My brother got a NES for his birthday when he was 5. And I remember my mom, I think it was my grandmother that gave it to him. And my mom just flipped out, like, no way, we are not giving this to my child. We don't want him on this TV. You shouldn't be giving him this stuff. Well, obviously that didn't fly well because we ended up, playing games all the time. And we would only be allowed to play an hour a day, though. So, and we had the old classic games, Duck Hunt. We had the old NES baseball game that I absolutely loved. And so I've
Man.
always been into it. I'm not really a sporty person. So I tried to do soccer and I tried to do like team sports and stuff, but it wasn't my thing. I liked to be inside. I like to read. I like to create, I like to make things, and beyond the screen was just one of my things that I love to do. So it's been since I was what that would have been, I was probably 3 years old. I guess I didn't play it until I was older, but right from the beginning with the old Marios. Yep.
Okay. So if you were stranded on an island, what system would you bring and what game would you bring?
I would probably bring Chrono Trigger on the SNES.
Good choice. Good choice. Good
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah. I could play that game. I did. I played that game so many times, starting New Game Plus like millions of times.
Oh God,
So
I have a funny story about, and I've told this before, so if you've heard the story before, that you could just fast forward the story. But Kara does not know, and therefore she must be told this story. So I grew up just, like you, I grew up playing, platformers. Mega Man, Legend of Zelda was probably like the most adventure-y thing. I never got into RPGs. I didn't even know what role-playing games were at the time in 95. So we rented Chrono Trigger from Video Right was the was the video store, which I never
good memory.
still to this day I always thought that was a weird name. Video Right, like so opposed to Video Wrong. Like,
Well, now we know why it went out of business. Bad
no.
name.
Or was it? Yeah. So anyway, good, from Video Right, um, And I started New Game Plus without understanding what New Game Plus was. I thought I was just starting a new game. So I played it and I decimated everybody. And I was like having so much fun because I was into the story. I was into the music. I was into the art style, because I was really starting to get into Dragon Ball Z at the time. And then I opened the booklet and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Akira Toriyama. Like this is Dragon Ball Z stuff. This is awesome. So I'm killing everybody. I beat the game. I'm sorry, I don't beat the game. I have to take the game back. So we took the game back, and then Christmas rolls around, and I want this game because I loved it so much. And so Christmas comes around, I get the game, put the game in, and I understandably am frustrated because this is not the same difficulty standard of which
That's
I,
funny.
I'm getting my ass handed to me. Why? What is happening? What is going on? I had no idea about like leveling, experience points, no idea how RPG game mechanics worked. Um, and so through a buddy of mine or somehow I'm crying. Like I can't beat this one boss. And finally a buddy of mine was like, "Bro, if you know," and he explained to me what experience points was. And I'm like, oh, I gotta beat the little enemies to get stronger so I can beat the big enemy. Oh, that's it. And once that clicked, I was like, oh, I really do enjoy role-playing games. And then from then on, I strictly played role-playing games. Um, and so yeah, Chrono Trigger was my first foray into understanding what the hell a role-playing game was.
Did you beat the game?
Oh, I did. Yes, I
Okay.
damn well sure did. And I got all the nine endings or whatever. Yeah, or I got all, the best ending out of all nine or whatever.
Nice.
Um, yeah,
Funny.
still, I cried at the part, and it's the music is what makes you cry. You're like, yeah, the game is great, but just to add that, do 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 do, and it's just,
Yep.
you're going through space and flying through all the lands and everything. Like, oh my God, I don't want this to end.
I remember that too.
I mean, it's so good. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I remember beating it for the first time and thinking to myself, like, if I'm ever, this is a really dark thought, by the way. But at some point I am going to not be here any longer and I'm going to be on my deathbed or something like that. And I think, for some reason as a little kid, I was just like, on my deathbed, this will be my last game that I play. I don't know why I thought that, but I just thought that. And I think it's because that song has such a finality to it.
Mm,
That last ending track,
mm.
what's it called? Good
Too
Memories,
far away times?
Far
Or
away times. I
okay.
think
You're
is it
thinking
too
of
far away?
Two Good Friends, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's such a that tune was composed with such, like, because you really truly feel memories of all this entire adventure that you went on, and you can attribute that to your own life. And I think that's why I had that thought, because that is the perfect tune to listen to when you're going to say goodbye to
Mm,
your family, your friends,
mm,
and you're just like, all right, that's it. It was
mm-hmm.
a fun time.
Mm. You don't know how many times I get comments from grown men telling me how much they'd cried listening to my renditions. It's kind of
I
funny.
almost did listening to your last stream earlier today. I was
Aw.
like, I was just having it on the background. I was, getting my face ready, for today's stream. My wife has for years have told me about moisturizing your face every day, and
Good for her.
I finally figured it. I finally figured out a face regimen that, because I'm Italian and German, and we just got oily skin. You can see it off the friggin' light. Like, yeah, it's just I pat my
I'm
face, but
jealous. I'm
I
jealous. I want the glow.
you know, God dang, we
That's
just
funny.
seep in grease here, us Italians. But uh, so I would break out in acne all the time
Yeah.
because of the oil. And
Mm-hmm.
so it took me years to figure out a regimen to like kind of clear up my face. And now I was like, babe, I'm sorry that I ignored you all this time because now my face
That's what
looks
wives are
so much
for.
better. Anyway, yeah, I was listening to your stuff and I was like, God, it's just like the way that you play and piano itself is very and a very emotional, probably one of the, if not the most emotional instrument to
Mm,
play. And it's definitely an instrument that I wish I knew how to play.
mhm.
I can fiddle around and make a beat here and there, thanks to electronics and technology and whatever, making me sound like I know what I'm doing, but I don't. I don't know anything about theory. So it's incredibly impressive to watch a piano player not just play piano, but just master it. Like mastering these five fingers to do everything independently of another. Like I feel the same way with guitar players. You
Mm,
know, I try to
mhm.
play guitar, not happening. It's gonna not gonna happen. Um, so I think piano, guitar, anything to do with independently using these fingers, I feel like is probably the most impressive instruments. Drums are fun, but if you can master, just moving your arms and different, kind of, independently of one another, you pretty much have a good, you know, you could get by with playing drums.
Kind of, though. I've done a couple of tracks that have like percussion in them. Like I've done some Donkey Kong covers where I've tried to like imitate the percussion in in the original soundtrack. And like if I try to play the right hand on the piano and like tap a different rhythm in the left hand, like on the piano, I can't do it. Like I can't do them together. So it shows that it's sort of like a narrow, my skills as a pianist are just that. I can play the piano, I can't do that and this at the same time with my right and left. That's different than what I usually do as a pianist. So I'm a little jealous of your ability probably to like manage two rhythms simultaneously that you're tapping. So I don't
Well,
know.
yeah,
I'm amazed at that
well, it's
too.
just like everything else. It's just
Mm.
practice, it's
Yeah.
just all it is. Well, with your ability to play piano, have you experimented with playing guitar at all?
I took a couple of guitar lessons when I was a child, when I was a teenager, and I even took a couple cello lessons. But one thing is, and this is true, you really want to focus on one. If you focus on one, you're going to get good at it. If you start to really like throw your skills around and be, jack of all trades, master of none, right? You
Right.
want to really focus on that one to get good at it. And I've noticed that even with the thing that I do as a pianist, which is stream, which is make recordings. I get good at those things in being a pianist that make me maybe not as good with classical technique, for instance. If I
Hmm.
practiced classical technique all the time, I'd be good at that. But that's not what I'm doing to make a living, right? So
Right.
I focus on the one thing that is getting me, the views or the enthusiasm or whatever, and make that my goal.
Right. And
It's
and
skill.
did you notice that did you take to piano like, oh, like did it come easy to you? Like or was it some because like when someone for me personally, I don't want to work very hard. I don't like working very hard. I don't like
Me neither.
studying. I don't like, so drums came easy to me
Okay.
because like I don't know why it came easy to me. I was like I kind of just like picked it up pretty fast and I was like, okay, I could and it's fucking fun to bang on things. And I was a kid and just like and I eventually started learning how to play better. Was that a similar experience with you in piano?
So I'm a lot like you. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm kind of just like I'm lazy. I have a lazy side, I should say. I've learned to control that. Even just like I tell my students sometimes that I'll play the first page of a piece of music and then I get too lazy to turn the page. I'll just be like, okay, I'm just gonna play the first page over. And I said, you know what? As long as you're playing, give in to your laziness. Just play the first page. Just play it over and over and over again. And so I did have sort of that mindset. But I think one thing that really kept me going at the piano was a cultivation of that in the home. My parents were just so good about keeping music a wonderful thing, to make me feel like it was a good thing what I was doing, instead of lots of families just don't have that, that where the kid is not really getting that cultivation, I think. And so it's a lot harder for them to gain the skill to be able to do it.
Ye-
I think when I was like 8 years old, I got dropped from one of my teachers, my piano
I'm so
teachers.
glad that you said
What? What?
I'm so glad you got dropped by your teacher.
Oh, well, I wasn't the perfect student, but the problem was that I was playing everything else but my lesson. So I would never come to class prepared because she would be like, okay, play this song for me. And I was like, well, I played everything else but that. And so I got dropped. Well, now I'm a pianist. So it
There
does,
you go.
as long as you're playing something.
Well, it's also great that you grew up in such a, in such a family that understood, the benefits of music. A lot of, because music, was always, and probably even now, was always looked at as sort of like a waste of time because the odds of success of you doing anything with it are very, 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 very small.
Mm.
But you could say that to anything. Like people thought video games were such a waste of time, and now look, the biggest streamers on the platforms are making, I don't know, $1 million a year, and so like, that whole argument, it's a waste of time. It's like, I don't know, working a 9 to 5 dead end job seems like a waste of time to me too,
True.
and not having fun. You
Hmm.
can at least have fun and not
Hmm.
make money.
Right.
You know?
And when you're a musician, I think music is just in you. You know, you're never going to get rid of that. You kind of have to, even just being musically inclined, even if you don't play an instrument, there is that. And that's why learning to play an instrument is such a good thing for somebody who's musical, because it
Yeah,
gives them that chance to have an outlet to, you know, make music themselves,
absolutely.
get it out of them in a sense.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I was fortunate enough to grow up around musicians and the touring lifestyle. My parents were singers and
Hmm.
entertainers, and
Oh,
they still
wow.
are. They still are. I'm actually
Oh,
flying out to Mexico next week to play for my dad's Elvis show.
wow.
My dad is an Elvis tribute artist. He's been that for before I was born. That's how my parents met. My mom sang backup for him. And so they're still together and they're still singing and they're still having a good time. And so I was around music my entire life. So, I grew up, my parents would let us, a 16, the older that I get, the more I appreciate what they did for us. Because this is how we grew up. We grew up listening to metal, new metal, rock and roll, Nirvana, like the loudest era of music was like the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. Um, and so we wanted to be in a band just like that. And so they let us have a practice space in their house because they also had a practice space because they also had a band, but their music was oldies and like doing ding 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 super quiet, just like having a good time. And we get in there and we bust the speakers. We're just fuck off, just like go, these 16-year-old kids just screaming into the mic, and they let us do it hours on end because they understood that we were so passionate about music and wanting to be in a band and wanted to just do that whole thing because that was our identity, and it still
Mhm.
is for a lot of us. So a lot of my friends went off to do some awesome great things in music because of that time, because our parents allowed us to facilitate that passion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so to hear you say that you grew up around a family like that's just really cool.
Yeah. Well, I can say all the way through up until now, I've just had that blessing, I guess, is of being able to have parents who care and who support. I mean, even just being able to have my dad rebuild me an instrument and just getting me into this space and stuff. I have a organ in here and a harpsichord too. My dad built a harpsichord when
You
he
have a
was in his 20s.
harpsichord?
Yes,
I
my dad
I
built it.
I can't say harpsichord without having some sort of English accent. Maybe it's just Downton Abbey. I don't know.
But
But
yeah,
but
so just like the whole everything that I am, in a sense, I feel like I couldn't have had it all by myself. I needed that push and that, encouragement from other people.
that's just so cool.
Yeah.
That's just really cool because you know, a lot of young kids out there grew up with parents who said, "Put that down. You're not going to do anything with that." It's like,
Hmm.
you're gonna become the next. You're gonna be next in line to take over the I don't know, the AutoZone. I don't know.
Anything but music,
Yeah,
right?
anything but music. That is a waste of time. Don't do
Yeah.
it. Um,
Right.
but even then, it's like, even when you grow up and start and get into relationships and everything like that, you start to meet people who didn't grow up like that.
Mm.
Who, especially me being in a band, like it was really hard to find someone um that would allow me to just leave for weeks on end. Um, and have like some semblance of a long distance relationship.
Mm.
So when you and even then it's like you got to make sure that you find someone that has at least a somewhat understanding that you're passionate about it.
Right. I I I also feel like one thing now, one of my goals is to keep video game music alive. I'm sure you feel the same way, but it's like you don't want this to get lost. Like if we don't carry this on, who's gonna do it?
I mean, right. I mean, but it makes me you're absolutely right. People like you, people like you, like I love that we're keeping this stuff alive and newer composers are coming out now that like Toby Fox, for example. And the reason, it's so funny to me because I get requested Undertale alternative universe stuff all the time, of which I've played Undertale once and I love the idea of the game, but it's not the game that I love. I don't I you know the game I like just fine. It's the music that Toby Fox is obviously inspired by.
Mm,
And I'm like, he grew up playing Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana. You can hear Mega Man, like you can hear all these old retro games in his compositions,
hmm.
and he's keeping that alive through his compositions. And now all these kids who are like 13, 12, who have never played any of the games that we grew up playing are getting they're getting it through his compositions without even knowing it.
Absolutely. They become iconic in a sense
Yeah,
outside of the video game world, which by the way, did you know Toby Fox grew up like 20 minutes away from where I live?
I did not know
He
that.
grew up in New Hampshire. Yep.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Maybe some of his skills will rub off on me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's incredibly impressive
Mm,
what he does in terms of like actually the composition themselves. Like I'm sure he's a fantastic musician too,
mm,
but you just it's another level to create something as opposed to playing it over. I've realized
mm.
that I'm not so fond of creating something as opposed to like I like learning or like playing over, maybe not learning entirely because again, back to like I hate studying, but uh like playing over things, like I feel like I can do that. I can play over things and get them to kind of where they are. um but to actually create something is incredibly difficult to do.
Hmm.
um have you so because you've created, like you've said earlier that you created something like, personally, so what avenue do you like to do? Do you like to create as well as perform, or?
Well, being a classical musician, we get that flack a lot from people that say, "Oh, you're always playing the same notes. You're always playing the same notes. Why don't you write your own, thing or whatever?" And, so there is a little bit of a side of, well, Beethoven was an incredible, you know, composer. And when we play his music, actually, I think there's a line in the movie Amadeus. I don't know if
I
you've seen
love
it,
that
but,
movie. That
but
movie's so good.
well, remember when he says there are just as many notes as it requires, no more, no less, right?
Yeah.
And you feel that way when you play Mozart. It's like I'm not going to change it. It's so good.
Yeah.
And so you want to be able to just play. And of course, every time you play it, you're creating your own version of it, right?
Hmm.
But you're following a structure, right?
Right.
And when I first started posting on YouTube, I was performing the piano collections versions of Final Fantasy music. So basically, arrangements that had already been made, and I was playing them just as a classical pianist. That's how I had grown up learning how to play, and people liked it, and I did get a lot of views on those videos. But now I've sort of changed a little bit, and like you said, tried to make my own version of something great. that's already there. So
Yeah.
taking the Chrono Trigger soundtrack and arranging it for 3 instruments and making it something that nobody's heard before. That kind of thing has made me still stick with what I like to do, like you said, is to just play along or to play music the way I see it on the page, and also being creative and putting the two together.
Right.
So, and still taking music from great composers. You know, people do love cover songs, but the reason for that is because those composers had something special. If I tried to write my own music, nobody's going to listen to it. I'm sorry
That's
to
what you
say. Like,
think. That's what you think.
I know, but you know, my
But I
skill
get
isn't
it.
in that. I haven't had enough training. I don't roll that way. So to put my energy and efforts into that and then be like, nobody listened to my composition. Well, you know, I'm not going to waste my time on that.
uh, you did say one thing. So is the classical, because I never grew up really with in the classical world. I grew up in like rock and metal and all that stuff. Um, but is it similar to jazz where it's like there's this certain, I don't know. What is what how would you describe like sort of the community around the classical, just classical music in general? Like you just said something like, they encourage you to do something different. Is it similar to jazz in that way?
Um, when I mean that, I mean like if let's say you're playing the Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven, you know, and you have the sheets in front of you, you have the dynamics already on the page, and basically everything's there for you. But when you play it, you're going to create your own version of that by different things, you know, being at a different piano, being having your own mind to push and pull different phrases differently than somebody else might. So you could look up the Moonlight Sonata on YouTube and find thousands and thousands and thousands of people playing it, but they're all going to be different, even though
Hmm.
it's the same music that you're hearing. So I guess with classical music, one thing is when we look at like Uematsu or, you know, these great composers today, they wouldn't be here today without classical music.
Of course, yeah.
Like that's where they came from. Of course, Uematsu writes in the Western classical style, right? For the most
Hmm.
part. And to not have had Bach to bring us to Mozart, to bring us to Beethoven, to bring us to Chopin, to bring us to Brahms, to bring us to Tchaikovsky, to, you know, eventually bring us to composers like Uematsu. You need that foundation. And we love, you know, me as a classical pianist loves to play the old stuff. I love early classical music. That's probably my favorite, Bach and Mozart. And it's just so crisp and clean. And I don't know, it's just, to me, it's got that sort of more bouncy side that plays more with my personality as a person.
Yeah. I mean, um, I guess what I was trying to get at is like, because in I
Did I take you into the wrong territory?
no, I know I'm trying to formulate my thoughts because I have had, because I took lessons for like a year, and he was a jazz trained drummer, and now he played for like Eddie Money and like all these 80s bands. Of course, rock, was big back in the 80s, and so he got jobs doing that, but he always grew up playing like jazz and stuff like that. So he tried to teach me how to read music and jazz and just wasn't flying. Um, and I had friends who went to classically trained schools and whatnot, and he told me, there's a different sort of mindset that musicians can take when mastering the art of music. And there is the everything has to be perfect, everything has to be to the page, sort of that whiplash sort of movie, it's like not my tempo. If you you know
Right.
um so have you kind of experienced any of that while you were learning classical? Like, just it has to be,
Oh,
if you
yeah.
don't do this the way it's written, you're you're not doing
That is the classical world. That is
okay.
the classical world.
Okay,
That's
that's what I
why
was
I
trying to
was
get at.
Yeah, absolutely. I like I said, I love classical music. I think it's brilliant. It's great. It's amazing. We need to keep that alive. I think it's important to carry on what these composers have done, you know, these geniuses that they have done. But the classical world, and this is why I really gravitated towards video game music, is that they were looking for perfection. And like I said at the beginning, if you weren't the best, you weren't going to make it in the classical world. But with video game music, you feel like you can change things. Like you can take the theme and change it, and it's okay. And that's what makes it so great. There's that being able to morph it and, mold it to something that's your rendition, not to take away from classical being what it is. Personally, part of that I think is because classical music was just so perfect to begin with that it just
I
didn't need to
mean,
be changed.
and also
But
it's got like a couple, what, 1,000 years of people
exactly.
listening and playing, and it's
And
like,
people probably changed it. You think about, I actually, in the movie Mozart, the Amadeus movie, you remember when Mozart would go to the shows for the common people that were basically playing the magic flute, or, the Marriage of Figaro, and making it vulgar and funny and silly and stupid. But
yeah,
he loved that. Like, he wanted to see the common people, the normal people, playing and enjoying his great elevated music. you know
yeah, and especially like as a person that was a child prodigy that just like picked it up and was just like and mastered it pretty much immediately. I mean, at a certain point, you got to have some fun with it,
Right.
like because you get bored and you're just like,
Absolutely. See, I
I've
don't
already
even like to.
done.
I, I don't want to play the same thing more than for a week. Like, for me, it's like, if I'm going to prepare a concert, I don't like preparing concerts. I don't even like preparing for YouTube because I get tired of the same song, having to practice it for 3, 4, 5 weeks. Or some people practice for years on the same pieces if they're doing tours and, working on the same show and same program every time. It's like, I don't know how they do that.
Yeah, to be to I kind of see the benefit of uh being, what's the phrase that I either heard or made up. I want to say I made it up, but I probably heard it from somebody. Being tour ready or being tour solid or something like that, where you're playing the same set for every single day,
hmm
and by the end of the tour, even if you think you messed up and played it terribly, you watch it back on video years later, like, wow, that was absolutely perfect. What the hell was I thinking? It's called being tour solid,
Mm.
where, and there's a benefit to that because you just mastered those songs, like, so there's a benefit to that sort of mindset of
hmm
just like practicing, getting it in, and just mastering it. But
And some people have the ability to, they have the drive to do that. I think,
yeah.
I don't know about you, but I don't want to do that. That's not my goal in music.
It depends on if I'm like hired to do a gig and it's a gig that I really like and I like the people and I don't want to let them down, then yeah, I will master what it is that they want me to do.
Mm,
But if it's just for me and my own thing, like if I have the time and energy and am inspired to get this as perfectly as possible, um, then yeah, I'll do that and I will try to learn every single part as clear and concise as possible. But if it's just for like a live stream, I'm just like, I'm just gonna fucking, I don't know. I don't have anything prepared. I'm just gonna go live and see what happens, which is
right.
basically most of my streams. Um, just yeah. I like that aspect too, where you're just kind of like, you're kind of like re-experiencing music again that way. Because when you're a kid and you're just starting out, you're doing it for the love of it and the fun of it, as opposed to like this, I have to get these parts for this job because of this thing and this goal. And um I don't know, doing the live stream has kind of like made me it's kind of sort of similar to when I first started getting into music with a bunch of my friends and we would just share music back and forth with one another. Does that have that feeling for you sometimes when you're streaming?
It's a new experience every time. That's why it just makes you feel like your music is alive. It's a different experience every time you go on. Sometimes it's a bad experience. I've had breakdowns on my streams, just crying like, I'm playing so badly, or whatever. But even just to look back on those, it's just like, well, that's part of the process. That's part of the experience. It's different every time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hang on one second. Wait, what is this thing? Sorry.
That's all right. Is he all right?
He's fine. He was whimpering because he put his he my dog Pig loves his ball. He loves his little ball. And sometimes he puts his ball in places where he can't get it anymore. And and so he knows if he whimpers, I will go and grab it. And so that's what happened.
He doesn't care if you're podcasting.
No, doesn't no. It's like this ball is my and I love this dog so much because he's figured out a way to play with himself as opposed to like he wants me to
It's
play with
nice.
him all the time. But when he knows that I'm like doing something or whatever, he'll kind of like figure it out and just kind of like play with a toy or play with the ball or whatever. And so the dachshunds are smart. They are smart dogs. I like I had a lab growing up and I thought labs were really smart and they are. They're incredibly loyal creatures. But this dog knows how to play me more than any other dog I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, that can be a bad thing sometimes.
Do you have that experience with
Oh
your
yeah.
toy poodle?
Poodles are very smart dogs as well. Yes.
They just know exactly how to get you.
hmm Well, being this cute's easy to get me, but
You know, they know. Don't you feel like they know they're cute?
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like they just know how to just turn on the big eyes. But look at me. I'm so cute. He,
She's
how old?
6 years old.
So that's good age. Yeah. My
Oh yeah.
pig is 7 now, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's got a ton of energy still. She's like crazy. She could play all day and not get tired.
Same.
But she's
Same.
been good. Look at her, how being
No,
so
she's
good.
just so well relaxed
Well,
and
you're not
well
seeing.
behaved.
She has plenty of bad times.
Yeah, we lucked out our dog Pig. When he first started to chew on things as a pup, we immediately started like putting toys in his face. And I think that's why he's like obsessed with toys now. Is it the advertent side effect of it?
At least he's not
Um,
obsessed with your shoes.
is shoes or wires or
Yeah.
something terribly detrimental to his health.
Yeah.
So, it's a give or take thing, being a dog parent. Ugh. So, I don't know if I have anything else. I've just kind of like I've talked with I've talked with so many different streamers about, their success and of which yours is well deserved, by the way. It's so great to see, you watch your streams and, you're just having fun with all of your followers and just, and speaking to them and engaging with them, which I need to do a lot. I noticed that and I'm like, I need to do better at that, but it's because like I'm not very social. Um, it kind of I don't know what to say and I don't
Mhm.
feel confident in my speaking voice and whatever. Sorry, I'm trying to get over it. Trying to get over it and talk with my therapist about it. But hey, we're all trying to we're all trying to get something. But I just think, I'm just so glad that people like you exist that, are, grew up in the and are kind of veered into the same lane that I have.
Mhm.
I've always wanted to see musicians of your caliber play over to the games that I grew up playing and like trying to scream to the world like, hey, this music is incredible. On the level of Mozart and Bach in a lot
Mhm.
of ways.
And you don't
Just
need to play the game
and you
to
don't
love
need
the
to.
music.
Absolutely. I screaming to the heavens about
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Because, and I still think that there's a little bit of that in the cultural space where there's a disconnect of like this music is not real music,
Mhm. Right.
and no one's outwardly said that, but you can tell it with like the numbers that I'm seeing. Like I'm seeing popular music, being popular and whatever. And I just want to see, I don't know, I just want to see the other pieces. I think the closest I've seen is Toby Fox reach
Mhm.
that level of popularity because
Mhm.
everyone has heard Megalovania.
Mhm. Right.
Even the Pope. There's that big news story where the Pope like
Oh,
commented on Megalovania or something like
I didn't
that.
know that.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact news story. It was like,
It's funny.
damn, this freaking soundtrack is like taking over the world right now.
Hmm
Um,
I find that when the game is still like, I notice most of the time when I post like Nintendo music, like Zelda or Donkey Kong or Mario, these are still games that are coming out. Like they're making new ones.
Yeah.
And so the younger generation is hearing Mario music and Donkey Kong music and Zelda music. And so I find whenever I post something that's one of those three, like I could post on TikTok. If it's Mario, it's getting thousands of views. It doesn't even matter, like if I do a good job on it. I just post, and at one point we were posting like Mario, Zelda, Mario, Zelda, and my numbers were just like, whoop, because people wanted to hear Mario, like they just want to hear that. But I want to see the same thing happen to, the other greats like Uematsu and,
Yeah.
Mitsuda and all those.
Oh God,
Yeah.
Mitsuda's.
Yeah.
Someone had requested a Xenogears tune the other day for me. I don't know if you ever played Xenogears or ever heard of Xenogears. Have you been requested any Xenogears?
Well, Shane, on my stream last week, I played the entire soundtrack
Oh, did you?
on
I
on a
okay.
stream. You should listen to it. Maybe I'll send you the link later, but I just started in the book. I started at the beginning and I played the whole thing. I've never played the game though.
Well, you're not. I mean, well, the game is incredible. The first CD is incredible. The second
Mhm.
CD, you're like,
Yeah,
what
that's
is
what I've
going
heard.
on? What happened? And apparently there was like this huge thing that happened during development where like a bunch of people got fired or what. I don't know.
Oh.
Something crazy happened where they had to finish this freaking game in a really short amount of time, and so they had to completely switch how this game was going to, be made. And so it's a lot of text. That's a lot of text and you're
Yeah.
a lot of exposition out of nowhere. And the first CD is like all this adventure and all this like, oh man, this is super cool. I cannot wait to see what happens in CD two. And then
Ugh.
you put in CD two and you're like, oh, okay. It's like this immediate drop off.
The music
Um,
stayed good though.
oh, the music. Oh my God. I had a friend of mine. This is before this was when it was hard to find soundtracks because a lot of them were just released on like you could buy them in like game magazines. That's the only way that you could buy these like video game arranged soundtracks on CD. But right during the advent of like Kazaa and Napster and when you were starting to able to like download music, a buddy of mine downloaded and found like all of these Japanese released arranged soundtracks for all these games, and he put them on his iPod. And this is the early generation iPod where it was touch, but it was still you had buttons.
Yep.
This is not a touch screen. This is still I still have it. It's still somewhere in back there. It's incredible. Anyway, um, he had the Xenogears arranged soundtrack, and I would just listen to this over and over and over again. And just it's just so beautiful.
Mhm.
And because especially with Yasunori Masuda's stuff, there's a lot of Celtic
Mm.
that he puts in there sometimes.
Hmm.
Like especially with the Xenogears track, the arranged soundtrack, they used a lot of Celtic instruments, and it's really uh like Celtic inspired, like
Hmm.
Irish or Scottish or something like that. I don't know.
It's funny if you take the Xenogears soundtrack, the Chrono Cross soundtrack, and the Chrono Trigger soundtrack, you'll find like duplicates tracks in all three that are like based off of the same style. So like I've done a lot of mashes in my streams where I'll mash like Millennial Fair with Another Termina with My Village is Number One, and put them all together. And it's like, oh my goodness. You can tell it's the same composer, but they're all just like their own brilliant masterpieces, all in a different way.
Yeah. Uh, I, I love the Chrono Cross soundtrack was incredible too. Um, the again, Xenogears was fantastic. Chrono Trigger.
Mhm.
Um, so now
I
that you've
discovered a new song in Xenogears called Blue Traveler. Is it Blue Traveler?
ooh, Blue Traveler.
Blue
Hang on. Do I
something.
know that one? I think I do know that one. Hang on. Which one is it? Hang on. Let's
So good.
let's play a game. Blue Traveler.
Blue Traveler. Blue
Xeno
something.
Xenogears? Hang on. Oh, here we go. I think you might be right. Hang on, we're gonna listen to it. After this ad. 3, 2, 1. Okay.
It's the middle part that is the best.
God, so good. It's so triumphant.
I fell in love with it when I played through the whole thing on my stream. This is like so good.
What my favorite track from that soundtrack is, oh my God, what is it? It's the scene where Choo Choo's flight. Hang on, I'm
Oh,
sure.
is it Flight?
Yeah,
Is it the
flight. That's what
Oh,
it
I
is.
love that.
Yeah.
And see,
Th
Wings of Time and Flight mash so well together.
I think that's why I love it so much.
So good.
It's just so it's such a like when that scene happens, because I know you haven't played the game, but there's this character called Choo Choo, and it's just like this anamorphic being that's sort of like the Ewok character of the whole series of the whole game. And you meet this character called Choo Choo, and then you find out that Choo Choo has this ability to grow into this giant freaking thing and fly and beat up huge mech robots. And it's just this pink, cute little thing that
Oh.
grows up into this freaking huge version of this pink, cute little thing. And Flight plays. That's the first time you hear Flight, if I remember
Mm.
correctly. And it's this just triumphant freaking piece of this really silly scene of this giant stuffed animal looking character beating up on mechs.
Sounds very Japanese.
I was just about to say, I was just about to say, there, that's one thing I love about, like Japanese, writing and manga and all that stuff is like, they're not afraid to get silly,
Yeah.
you know? Um, so
But still
like,
stay classy with the music. The music just really it reminds me a little bit of Star Wars. You have this silly scenes, these stupid like if the movie didn't have any music, you'd just be like, what is this dumb movie? But with
yeah,
the music, it just elevates the whole thing and makes it something that lasted now for
I'm
decades.
sure you agree. I'm sure you agree. I've said this before. It's like music is half the battle with these
Mm.
games. Music is half the battle with anything, with any sort of piece of art. If the music is bad, the game is half as bad. Like that's just how it goes. If the music is good, it ups the level of the game, to another degree.
Hmm.
Um, so have you ever thought of composing music for a video game yourself? Have you been approached by anybody, like any independent artists, like say, "Hey, can you compose some stuff for us?"
All I care, this is what would make me happy, and it's never gonna happen. But if it ever happened, this is what would like be my dream come true. I want them to do a remake of Chrono Trigger and use my soundtrack.
I would,
That's all
I
I
would,
care about.
I, I would love that. I would absolutely love that, and I would love them for number one to make a remake of Chrono Trigger. I don't know how long and how much we have to scream at them to do this. Like
They
it,
have to do a good job though. They've tried on
it's
other
gone on too
games.
long, and see now it's gone on too long. See, I think
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII Remake came at the right time.
Mm.
We're just about to get over it, and then
Hmm.
they teased it, and they're like,
Hmm.
okay, well, now it's going to happen. And I was hoping that because of the success of Final Fantasy VII Remake, that they would actually go down the avenue of, remaking older releases that they have, because they really do have gold in those older titles like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI and 5 and 4, and and a bunch of other unreleased a bunch of unrecognized titles that grew up, like Vagrant Story. Vagrant Story was really an awesome game with a freaking dark story. The ending was insane. Um, and I don't want to give it away, but it's like a very like a twist ending that made you just like, whoa. Okay, but Square at that time was Squaresoft, but Square Enix, went on this run of just really interesting role-playing games with really interesting stories.
Mm.
Um,
It's
but
hard to
anyway,
remake a game that's so good already. You know, I think that's one of the
Yeah.
things. There might be a fear there. It's like they've tried to remake movies. Like they do like a Lord of the Rings TV series or something. It's just like, why would you redo
But
anything? That was such a
yeah.
perfect movie.
Yeah, but then you have shows like The Mandalorian where they're just like
But
playing
they've
off of
destroyed Star Wars. They
no
have they have
shots
not
fired.
I mean, okay, if they didn't make 7, 8, 9, Star Wars would be perfect, but they ruined it. So that's how I feel anyway.
um, but like oh, where was I? What was I go? Oh yeah, so like it because and I've talked about this like my remake podcasts back in the day when remake came out, and I was just like floored by how much I loved it. Um, you could tell that it was made by people that took it fucking seriously. That they were like, we love this game so much that we're gonna pay homage to it. Like, and you can tell in the development and the programming, the music, the soundtrack itself. Like, I'm so happy with what they did with the music because they didn't change it too much, but they threw in other renditions of these famous tracks, in ways that you're like was a complete homage to the original game. And I feel
Mhm.
like they can do the same thing with Chrono Trigger. I really do. And I understand it to be a big undertaking, and I understand that it's possible that they could ruin it, but if you have people that obviously grew up playing and loving these games, which the developers themselves had said, like even the people that were unnamed in like the development note, you only see them in the credits, like interviews with them, they were like, we grew up playing this game. We understood like the importance of what we wanted to do with this game, and we wanted to make it, relatable to new people as well as, you know, take extreme caution and making
Mhm.
sure that we make the older generation
Mhm.
happy as well. And I feel like they succeeded in that. And I'm actually impressed with, I don't know what you're, I don't, have you ever played Final Fantasy VII Remake at all?
I played a little bit of it. I didn't finish it. I didn't even finish what they had come out with. But I thought it was good. I think they did a really good job.
Um, there's this, I haven't really got into the discussion of the lore recently now that the second installment is coming, but when you finish the first game, and I don't know if I'm going to spoil this for you, but you start to realize like there's something else happening here in terms of its storyline. You
Mm.
still get all the original story, you're still getting that, but there's something else happening where you're like, wait a minute, they didn't meet that way the first time, and this didn't happen the first time. Something else is going on, and so there's this other level of sort of like, you ever watch that show Lost?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So it's that kind of similar avenue where you're like, there's something happening here that we're not being told immediately. And I feel like that route that they took is absolutely genius because they
Mm.
could have totally went, and just remade it from the ground up and just like, here you go, kids. All right, let's get our money and we'll leave, but
Mhm.
they're taking a little bit of risk here with like
Mhm.
creating this other sort of storyline that's creeping up. And you're
Mhm.
like, okay, let's see where this goes.
Yeah. See, you're open-minded. I think there's a lot of people that can get hateful about that. Like if you change it,
Yeah.
you're always going to get that. So you have to get enough people who are intrigued by it. That's the
Yeah.
balance. I think it's hard for them, but
Yeah, that it's and
yeah.
I suppose you could do the same thing with Chrono Trigger because you're directly dealing with time travel. And when you're dealing with time travel, as we have watched through countless TV shows and movies, we're just like, it's all no holds barred.
Yep.
It is what it is. It's time
Hmm.
travel. I feel like you can do something really cool with that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it.
Well, Kara, that is about all I have time for. I really appreciate you doing this. This has been a lot of fun. It's great to meet you.
Mhm.
I'm a huge fan of your work, and I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic, and you just keep going. And yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you
Yeah, it
so
was
much.
really fun. By the way, I'm planning to try streaming on TikTok, which I haven't done yet before. I don't know if you've done it.
I've done it through the phone, but I know there's a way you could do it through like OBS and stuff.
Okay, that's
I want to get to that point, but I gotta stream more on the phone, and unfortunately, I don't have the time just
yeah.
yet to do that. But I do eventually want to do that, and it has
Mhm.
been really helpful for Chris Lombardi a cappella.
That's the one that got
He
me
is
kind of into it.
killing it right now.
Yeah.
He got in touch with me. He wanted me to do a little bit more. Unfortunately, I have a Mac, and to live stream using OBS on TikTok, you have to have a PC at least at this moment.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I learned
Interesting.
that, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, well, gosh dang it. Like, but there is a way to do it. You have to get that program that you can play Windows on your Mac and then do
Right.
it that way.
Right.
I heard that works. But anyway,
Okay.
but yeah, that's what anything you would like to plug, like any new streams, any new events that you're doing?
Well, I don't know when your thing is coming, when your podcast is coming out, but next week I'm playing at MagFest, which I don't know if I'm surprised you're not going.
I've never been to any sort of festival. Again, I don't have anybody to go with. Like I usually like going those things with like a friend, and all my friends have like moved out of town or have
Mhm.
families, and like I don't know. I just feel like alone. I
Yeah.
know I wouldn't be alone because I'd meet new people there, but again, I'm shy. I'm just kind of like I would just probably be in the corner and just like, hi.
No, you wouldn't. Make a trip out of it. Bring your wife. You guys could come together. She'd probably have fun. It's good. It's such a fun convention, but I'm playing in the lobby Thursday night. So
That's so
it's my
cool.
first time doing a show there. So I'm gonna do like a whole set, and then in between each song I'm planning to like quote things from the games that the song comes from. So to kind of get people guessing like what song is she going to play next. So I'm sort of adding some of my voice acting skills from my video game
Nice.
streams into my music. So that's my next big thing.
Very nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, everyone go follow Kara. Go for it. You won't be disappointed if you're not. All right. Bye.
Bye.